Good morning. It's a brand new day, and God's got brand new mercies. Thank you for joining me on Mornings with Mimi. I'm Mimi, and I just want to thank you for coming today. I want to talk to you a little bit about something that's heavy, and that is spousal abuse, and or any abuse for that matter, but specifically, I wanted to discuss spousal abuse. And I know a lot about that. Sadly, my first husband was very abusive. He could be absolutely wonderful when he was not drunk, but even when he wasn't drunk, he was still an adulterer, and he just had no respect for me or our marriage. And for about a year, I just was determined that I could fix him and that I could make it better. And that if he would just, not drink and all of that, that I could make life good. But I ended up having a child, and once my child was born, he would do things like hold me down and not let me go get my baby when he was crying. And I won't go into details, but it was very traumatic, the things that he did to me. And I know that there are many women out there who are in a very similar situation. And I just wanted to tell you, I'm sitting here today, going on 36 years with my current husband. No marriage is perfect, but I fled in the middle of the night one time after my first husband had come home drunk and had beat me up, and I had had a suitcase packed and hidden out in our barn for about 6 months. And I just couldn't get up the nerve. I was so afraid that he would catch me and kill me. And he had told me he would do so. And he said he'd kill our son before he let me leave with him. So after a while, that particular night, I just determined that if I didn't save my child, that things were just not going to end well for either of us. So I fled in the middle of the night. I had an old car. I was 22 years old, and I had $3 and about 4 cigarettes. I quit smoking in May 30, 2003, but back in those days, I was a smoker, and those cigarettes were all I could think about. My mother was not far. She was about an hour and a half away. So that's where I drove to, and terrified the whole time. I had my baby. I got as many of his things that I could gather while my husband was passed out, and I left, and I had to push my car out of the driveway because I was so afraid he'd wake up. And I looked over my shoulder the entire way home, and for 3 years after that, until I met my current husband. And he was my knight in shining armor. And I was still very traumatized. And back then, nobody talked about PTSD or anything like that. And I was even afraid to talk to my parents. I was afraid to tell anybody what had happened. It was so bad that when we finally went to court for custody and child support, because he did pursue me, and a sheriff would meet me at the county line and escort me into the courthouse, and he would still stand on the courthouse threatening to kill me and our son. And obviously I would not take our son with me to court. But anyway, when I met my current husband, going on 36 years, it took a long time for me to learn that I could truly trust him, even though he was good and all of that. It took a long time to trust. And, but I finally learned that I could. But then I went overboard and I put everything into him. I put every ounce of my being. I depended on him for my joy, for my peace, for my happiness. And I was a Christian, but I did not know God as good as I do now. It has been a journey, and I have grown so much. And I'm sitting here before you because of nobody but God, because my marriage would not be complete, and I would not feel complete without God. And like I said, it has been a journey, because the years that I put everything into my current husband, that's a lot of responsibility to put on another human being, for them to be responsible for your joy and your happiness and your peace and your safety. And he tried, but then he would get overbearing. You know, he wanted to protect me completely from everything. Then I would withdraw because I felt like somebody was taking over me again. And I was so aware of being controlled. And I wasn't going to be controlled, but yet I wanted him to be responsible for everything in my life. So it was a crazy time. And he was so good, and he tried so hard to be what he thought I needed him to be. But that was a lot of pressure. And one day he just found himself so sad and so distant from me, because I would pull back and pull back and pull back, that he sought elsewhere for his joy. But we made it through that, and God brought us through, and now, like I said, we're going on 36 years, and I'm so grateful for him, and I'm so grateful for the journey that God has taken me on, because I couldn't sit here and talk to you guys and maybe help someone else know that there is hope, but it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to stay in the Word. You're going to have to pray as much as you can. God is there. He will keep you safe. He will provide your joy. He will provide your peace. But being a Christian is more than just saying, I trust you, Jesus. It's also seeking Jesus, seeking God, wanting to know more and more. And the only way that we can truly seek God is to read his word and get to know God. It's just like any other friend. He is there for you to know, talk to, love. And when you put all your faith and trust and love in him, then he can provide that through other people. But until we are confident in ourselves and in our relationship with God, all of our relationships will be distorted. And that, even though my marriage was good on the outside, everybody thought we were like the perfect couple, and we were to a certain extent. but I never fully trusted him. I was too broken. And to this day, I'm still broken. I am so broken. But I trust Jesus and I stay in the Word. And when I start feeling myself going backwards in any way, shape, or form, or if Satan gets in my ear telling me how unworthy I am and that I deserved what I got and that I don't deserve the man that I have now, I have something to fight with. I have God's Word. I have God. And I put my faith and trust in God. So now, when I look at my husband, I don't see a threat. I don't see control. I don't see anything but God's love. And I've asked him, please let me see him the way you see him. Because in the first years of our marriage, like all marriages, or most marriages, I assume, it's all, you know, butterflies and fluffiness and giggly feelings and all of that. But as you age together, those things disappear. And you have to rely on companionship and trust in each other and comfortableness and just knowing that you're going to be there for each other through the long haul, through the hard times. And God talks about that so much in His Word. And I want to read you this morning out of Esther. What better example of standing up and doing something terrifying than Esther? At times, we must take responsibility for our own protection and the protection of others. Esther prayed for God's guidance, and then she risked her life on behalf of her people. The king's agreement still needed to have a new law put it into practice. So, and I can't pronounce this word, Ahasuerus granted Mordecai the use of his signet ring to issue a new edict. So I'm assuming that's law. Crisis was averted through the intervention of individuals who cared enough to get involved. We must trust in God's guidance and protection, but then we may have to work and take risks in order to intervene in a difficult situation. That is relevant in some ways because we have to seek God to give us the strength to protect ourselves, our children, or whoever else in the household may be at risk. And we can't do that. It is so difficult. I have never been so terrified in all my life. But I did it. Something inside me got me out of that house, and I never looked back. I didn't know how I was going to care for my baby. I didn't know how I was going to care for myself. I didn't know, even though I had a great relationship with my parents, I really didn't know what they were going to say when I showed up in the middle of the night. And they looked at me, my mama looked at me, and she said, "What's going on?" And I was standing there, and I just said, "I've run away from home, and I can't go back." She didn't ask me any questions. She just welcomed me in. I was at my aunt's house, and she was there for a visit, but that was the closest place I had to go. And they both just comforted me, loved me, helped me take care of my baby. They knew something bad had happened, but they didn't know what. I never told my family what all had happened. I've never told anyone all the details of what happened. Those things don't really matter to me right now. And, although I've talked about some things with my current husband, because I would have night terrors and he would be there and comfort me. He knew it was bad, but he even don't know the details. And the details sometimes just don't need to be spoken. So, if you feel like you need to speak about the details, please seek counseling. Seek your pastor or someone in your church or even a friend. I did not want to rehash the details. I've told enough people, I've had counseling myself, and I told enough that people knew it was bad, and they knew that I was safe now. And thankfully, I lived with my parents for about 6 months till I was on my feet and got my own little place. Off the beaten path, I tried to get my place in, somewhere I felt secure. And it was, like I said, it was a journey. But I could not be here talking to you today if God had not taken me through that fire. I'm not saying I deserved it in any way, shape, or form. But God did take the evil that Satan meant for me, and he has turned it to good. Because of that situation, I went into domestic law as a paralegal. I have sat in court with other single moms. I have talked to women who would come to our law firm, and I was able to relate. And I could tell them I knew what they were going through, and they knew I meant it. So God has used me in many ways and used my pain and my situation to help other people. So whatever you're going through in your life, know that God does bring goodness out of bad. And although that path was probably, I would say, definitely not on the path that God had for me. But my husband says, sometimes it's like a big chess game. Not that life's a game, but this is his analogy. And he says, we're all on the board and we're where God needs us to be. And he's moving us forward. And just like the game of chess, through our life, it may take a long time for us to get across to where God wants us to be. Sometimes we jump off the board and try to go run our own direction. And he picks us up gently and he puts us back on the board. We're never, I don't think, back in the same place that he started. We might go in a new place. But he does put us back. And this new place, he will make just as great as he had planned for us in his original plan. I fully believe that. And he may still bring us through to his original plan. We just have to go a different route now. And I'm very grateful. I have been through nearly every tragedy you can imagine. But I sit here before you today. I don't know how I made it through. There are times I can look back now and think, I don't know how I got through anything in my life, several things in my life, many, many tragedies. But I did. And I know now, looking back, that it was God all along, even when I didn't think he was there, even when I didn't know him. Being a Christian is stating something that we trust in, but we don't really yet know God. We know what we've heard, and we want that, and we commit that we want that, and we get baptized. But do we ever complete knowing God? And that's the only way that we can know exactly what path He wants us to take, is by staying in His Word and letting go of the control we think we have in our lives. That's the toughest part for me, because I was so guarded and so damaged. Nobody was ever going to control me again. And at the first sign that I perceived in my twisted deception of life at that point, I would, my husband could say any little thing, and I would be like, oh, no, 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 you're not controlling me, and I would just be ready like a coiled snake to bounce back. And that wears on any good marriage. And I'm not saying it was all my fault, the troubles that we had over the years. And don't get me wrong, we've had some beautiful and wonderful moments, and we have 2 beautiful children that are God-fearing men and have ministries, and I have 8 beautiful grandchildren. Some are bonus grandchildren, but they're all mine, and I love them all dearly, and they're all good people, and most of them are God-fearing. Some are learning about God and trying to find their place, and it's a journey for each of us. But I would never be sitting here today doing these little videos if I had not sought the Word of God. I don't know where I'd be, but there's no way I would have the ability to sit here and talk to you. I hope that this message has brought some peace, or that you will find some little nugget in here that you can use to help whatever situation you're in. If you're in an abusive relationship, please know you do not deserve this, and you do not have to stay. You can forgive someone for what they've done. That does not mean you have to stay and continue getting that abuse. There are many ways you can be abused. It can be mental, physical, sexual, and you don't deserve it in any way. That is not what God has intended for you, and you can be so much more. Reach out to your church. Reach out to someone that you know you can trust. Save yourself and your kids if you have kids. Don't stay. Please don't stay. I will be praying for everyone out there that somehow you will get the courage that somehow I got, and I did not have courage at that time. I was so beat down, verbally, physically, in every way. I weighed about 100 pounds. I'm 5'4". I was weak physically, mentally, and in every other way. But God saw something. He saw me when no one else did. And He reached out. And He said, it's time. And as terrified as I was, He led me out of that fire. He led me out of Satan's den. And He has been protecting me. And I knew then that there was something bigger than me, something bigger out there. And I did begin seeking Him. Not completely, because I didn't completely know how, but I've been journeying through it. I love you. Have a blessed day. And remember, God does go before you and makes your way. Trust Him. Keep your hearts lifted and your coffee warm. And this has been Mornings with Mimi.